7-year broadcast executive background, and just a little bit about my journey is I started with CakeNet and I commissioned Afrikaans content for 3 years. Then I moved to Zanzi Magic and I was a commissioning editor for a good 3 years and started making mass market content. And then Showmax came about and we started, working on Showmax originals like The Wife, Adulting, all these cool stuff. And I commissioned then after I then moved on to senior management for series, meaning that I was in charge of anything that was series for MultiChoice and Showmax and the commissioning teams. So that is how my 10-year broadcasting was spanned down. I took my step down from broadcasting exactly a year ago. So now I am one of you guys. I've always wanted to say that. And I am a producer, and it's been quite an interesting and a wonderful journey. I'm so excited to share some of the insights that I have gathered over 10 years. And I want to just implore you guys and let you know that things change overnight. So what we are going to give is a lot of institutional knowledge, but that's not necessarily fact, because things change overnight and there's a lot of mergers that have happened, there's a lot of things that have happened. So we could give you the basics, but that doesn't mean that's exactly what it is now. The onus is just to keep attending sessions like this to get more information. So that's my introduction in a nutshell, but I'm not alone. I'm of the incredible, SAFTA winning, multi-talented Tabitha and Alison for today, and I'm going to
Has a way of introducing me in a way that I don't know myself. Hi, my name is Tabitha. So my area of expertise is actually directing, but I've also moved into the producer space, and it's very, very precarious, thorny, but we're learning, and I think we can learn together today. We can literally try and teach each other. We do have a little more information. However, I think it's an interactive space that we've got today, and I hope that's what we will receive. I've been in the industry since I was 18. I'm 42. I'm not. So it's 24 years roughly, but that's that. So I've been in the industry for very long as an actress. I started as a Tabi Patlele, then I had to find like a boyfriend, my husband with a short surname. So then I met my boyfriend. The body was nice, married him, so I could be a dad. So I decided, you know what, acting was not going to work for me. I'm really bad in public spaces. Then I moved behind the camera. But you think that you're just going to actors, kind of showcase your work and creativity, until somebody calls you and says, you have to pitch your direction. You have to pitch your creative to channel. They have to buy into your creative. They have to buy into whatever it is that you're going to be broadcasting. So you're also part of the chain and the ecosystem that gets people commissioned. So that's why I'm here. My job here is to teach you how to make your creative sound for every kind of broadcaster and every kind of client. So I hope you enjoyed it today. And this is Alison. Well, actually, we've all worked together on several projects for years. So we might have a shorthand. If we say something you feel like you don't understand because we think it's funny and you don't understand, just say, excuse me. We don't have that institutional memory. But this is Alison. I've worked with her on several projects from Wonderland to Outlaws. And she's one of the best when it comes to money. She manages us, she manages my time. She bosses me, she bullies me, but I love her for it. So this is Alison. And I always say it's for Get, it's not forget, it's for Jay, it's French. For Jay. Hello everyone. My name is Alison. My background is really weird. I started working at the SABC in 1993 when I was 17 years old. And it was really just to make money to study my passion, which was psychology. Needless to say, here I am, I don't know, 33 years later. I did study industrial psychology, and it does work for my job, I must say. I'm a line producer, I'm also a series producer. So my job is
and to look after the production, to look after the creators. So everybody on set calls me my name. I'm the mom on set. So I hope we have a good session. Again, this is a collaboration. I know lots of industry experts here. So when I speak to something and you want to add something, please feel free to raise your hand and add something. If I get wrong, you put me on to that. But let's have a good session.
Thank you so much, Louise. I think before I hand over the mic to Lynn, I just wanted to give you guys a sense of some of the shows we worked together on or we worked on. This is just half of the shows. We couldn't fit all of them in a slide.
This is a lot, and I think that we have to appreciate this. There's so much work to do. There are three of you, and you made your contribution in one or the other. It is a successful content that is watched on our televisions. So we are sure that engagements for today, we really get us from the thing that we do.
We are shooting. We're
There
shooting
are a
live.
bit of steps, ladies and gentlemen, but it's going to steps in. Please, but hi, it's gonna be a very long day. And then we also ask for more chairs. So just sit on the stage if they ask. And then you can just use the tree for the.
Excuse me,
Yes,
we can't see the screen. Can you really turn down the lights so that we can?
yes, we were gonna turn down the light. We were still prepping. We will turn down a bit of lights, but this light will stay on because of we need the interpreter to be able to. But we will turn the lights a bit off.
Thank you.
Again, we just didn't take the house rules first before we commence. In terms of the cell phones, please kindly put them on silent. I know we are all very busy. We can't to have them off. We can just put them on silent and if the phone is ringing, you just quietly move out without disturbing others. Secondly, the bathrooms are right on the left, just after the popcorn counter. That the bathrooms are. There will be some pictures that are taken around. We'd like to really ask that the pictures that we are taking, they are not for publishing, they are not for money making. We are using the report because of we are the masterclass with hybrid, with the people online, and we have some questions that are also coming online, but we also just have a lot of people just following this. So we are presenting in all kinds of ways we can share this information with people that are here and those that are not here. So if some support will not make it. I get it. And I would really like for us to be questions that we will ask that will take us from the next point to another. Avoid further ticking because right now we want to go forward. Having said no, let's move from the no and how did we let go that you got previously and how do we ask a question for us to take us forward? Because I don't want to in film, it's one industry where there's a lot of no's and yeses and all. So that's what I'm saying no. So enjoy it, everybody. And if you ask, please just from which production company you coming from, you can ask a question. For now, we allow Radia to share a presentation, and once she's done, we will go through the question and answers. Masterclass, and we should be closing it around. Thank you so much.
Okay, so it's so nice seeing familiar faces, two familiar faces, and it's also nice seeing fresh faces and new faces. Some of you guys, I don't know why you're here, because I'm just like, you know this stuff, and even the shows that we showed, some practitioners are here. But yeah, thank you so much. What I'll do before we get to the next point, um, this question, but it's not to start with. We have a lot to get through today, and yeah, so we just need to listen to that. So yeah, what are we talking about? Understanding broadcasting. I think the first and foremost important thing is when you are reaching out to a broadcasting, you must know that it's no one says before, especially in South Africa where we have diverse languages and we have sorry guys, just want to start taking videos. You maybe take pictures and but I think they need to be because we will be sharing a lot of confidential information and we want that to to be out there, especially with a lot of the IP works. So we're going to be very vulnerable, but we hope that you can understand that that's not something we want to put out. So please help us so we can help you. So we can, GFC can call us again, to have more sessions. Yeah, I think the most important thing is to understand that there are different markets, different languages, and you can't have a piece of content or a piece of project or a picture that you're just going to it doesn't work. In South Africa right now, industry is very fragmented, and that really is just because of our people. It's how people consume. Whether we like it or not, that's the truth of the matter. We can debate on how backwards it is, how not progressive it is, but this is how these institutions make money because that's how they use to watch content. They want to watch it in their own languages, see their own people in their own comfort. We're not yet at the point where we can have or Rainbow Nations, type of view. Although some shows have been able to do that, like they go that it's having works on entrepreneurs, legacy, the shows, but again, that's out of the way. So the three core markets that you are either packaging content to would be mass market, which is probably the most monetizable and the most commercial and the one with the most viewers. So mass market simply means for black audiences. And it simply means that the black audience is in the language, not in English. So if you're going to make a Zulu show, you make an authentic Zulu show. If you're going to make a Pedi show, you make an authentic Pedi show. If you're going to make a Tswana, Sotho, whatever the languages are. A lot of the time, I've gotten a lot of flack because the shows that were on platforms were really skewed, and a lot of other minorities, and that would ROI and money. The hugest market, the biggest market, because the huge market sits within the visiting region, and it's the market. And the psychology, I think it's because I'll be all the time. The psychology of the viewers is Nguni viewers who make up millions and millions and millions, and like maybe like 30% of people that are more likely to watch shows that are in Nguni, but rarely ever are open to watching minority languages. However, minority languages are not open to watching, and so that's why broadcasters are more skilled. It doesn't mean that everything needs to be Zulu, but you probably would have to have a Zulu plus a character in the show for it to be a one, especially if it's like daily. Then we have the Afrikaans market, which is the second largest from a but the largest from a film point of view. The Afrikaans market has a very, very loyal audience base, and it breaks down. They have two segments for it. It is the Afrikaans white and then the Afrikaans, let me call it, the term they use, it really just means colored or black. Those are huge markets, and convey very authentic language to the cultures and the lived experience. And you will find those type of markets or SABC, SABC at some point. They used to cut down on it, but yeah, let's have this. Then the last market is English. So we call it the premium market. It would be in English speaking. It's not a regional market where TV is and film, to be quite honest, because the viewers or the audiences in that market would much rather consume content in international formats, international content, and we know that the production value is high. So what broadcasters have started doing, we would rather license the formats, we would put it forward and show them that and not really make on that market. Is that clear? All right. So before you even target any broadcaster, you need to which market am I making for? If you understand which market you're making this for, then you understand who you're going to. But before we get to that, spaces, TV, streaming, media distribution spaces. So now that we understand that these different markets, it's a matter of okay, where am I going with this? The three broadcast environment is linear. Linear just basically means it's appointment viewing. There's a schedule, right? You are watching either on free TV or pay TV, schedule data you can watch at one time. And then streaming basically means that subscriber on demand. You subscribe to a certain space and you can watch at your own comfort. We have media, stuff like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. I've just been put into microdramas, which I think so excited. There's actually a really huge announcement coming next week, so I can't wait for that. So basically, new media is finding a way to go direct. At times, it could also be, film and television, like spaces like when you watch stuff on airlines. It could be like corporate spaces. A lot of the film directors with this those different TV for the country. We are going to be very scripted heavy, but please, if there are any reality, I know there's quite a lot of very established documentary filmmakers here. I was shaking when I saw you guys. If there's anything particular to reality, unscripted, a documentary that you want us to touch on or you want us to elaborate on, please just lift up your hand. Between the three of us. All right, then after that, now we need to understand the markets. There's commissioning, there's licensing, acquisitions, there's AFPs, there's pre-sales. Commissioning, what it simply means is that you give a concept, your own idea, your beautiful IP to a broadcaster. They give you all the money to make it, and then they retain the IP in perpetuity for the rest of your life and their lives. So you're basically offering a service and it's with them. So you then create an original for ETV, you will create an original for Showmax, you will create an original for Netflix, everything. What this is, you need to adhere to their standards, you need to adhere to their editorial, not after giving them the concept, say, no, but this is not my story. This is what I actually want to say. So they will pay you the idea, but they will chop it, move it, kick it up, as much as they want to pay, it belongs to them. This is the model right now. This is the bread and butter for the industry right now. And where a lot of broadcasters, especially media platforms, are now sitting, we are now seeing it with streaming as well. They would much rather be an exploiter as opposed to license and an actual, like a small portion of which they are still acquiring. So it's not to say they're not. The larger numbers, more and more and more, where they want original content for themselves. Some have studios so that they can take it for themselves. The next one would be advertising. It's the same. Essentially, what it means is you go to a brand, you just sponsor, you get an entity aligns with a piece of content that you're making the show, and the broadcaster gets to air for free, but they will have editorials there, especially for like this AFPs. I remember when I started, I worked on so many AFPs, and it's so very important right now. SABC does it a lot, Moja Love does it a lot. I think ETV to a certain extent. So advertiser funded programs really means that it's funded by an advertiser. Like, I'm going to make a show about baddies, and we're just going to have this cost everywhere. They're going to work with Mercedes, and they're like, we're happy with that. And then you go to an Mnet, for instance, and you're like, this is so well, and then they're like, well, this is the editorial we want on it, but we won't pay. The advertiser won't pay. Let's give them time in terms of exposure in whichever way that they want. And then we get to keep our editorial and Bob's your uncle. This used to be a very common practice for unscripted content. My prediction, based on conversations I've been having engagements, is now it's opening up for scripted content. And I think that's what it's also about. How do I create a scripted piece of content that can advertise? Because chances will be much more open to your creative, especially if it's like a first time engaging with them or first time working with them. If they don't have to take the risk financially. So it's just a thought, to think about. So you've got a question?
Well, it's not a question. Montgomery. You can see. So there's a company called Known Associates Entertainment that brought in Tina Wit, and it was tested. So from statistics, like you can statistics, we had. But they had complete IP over it. They had control over the narrative, and it was easier to shoot. So I said it was paid by 30. So those shows ongoing. So you can have like a which that also led from one and migrated to. So that book.
Actually, such a great example. Thank you for that. So yeah, I think this is the way to go, guys. Try, start leveraging off relationships with brand sponsors. Try find yourself in spaces where you can network with people who've got money, and see how you can answer a need for them, and then answer the need for the broadcaster. It's the easiest way to get in, but it's not the easy way to maintain, because you now have two things that you have to see, and you are the middle. So just do it as well. The next model is licensing. So licensing is a piece of content that you have. Also, it's a question. It's so it's like commissioning basically. But you can negotiate. That thing about AFPs is you can negotiate. Sometimes the client, the sponsor themselves want to, there's different. The contracts you can negotiate, they're more flexible. What I forgot to mention with commissioning is their contracts are very standard, so are they cost per minute? You can't argue about territories and all the type of things. With AFPs, because there is a level of okay, let's talk, but most of the time still take I don't know why you're here. Sometimes I mean, the best case scenario is if you can sponsor, you don't even have to have all the terms. You could piece of content. Mercedes is interested. Here's an LOI from them. We can work out the terms with you guys. At times, the broadcaster itself, because they have advertiser, it's called DSTV media sales. They know what sponsors are looking for, so they will maybe sometimes engage the editors and see anything on the portal, AFPO. And then you'll be like, yeah, we got this really good content from China. People drinking Coca-Cola and singing, it's like an eyeballs like that. Coca-Cola is looking to get some exposure. So sometimes the broadcaster and the one saying, hey, how about we turn this into a AFP? Let's go pitch it with you to sponsors. So myself and Anderson sometimes for scripted predominantly go and pitch to sponsors. The editor and the producer to go pitch a storyline to sponsors. Actors can come involved in a buyout or whatever. Actually, like different shows. Those are also part of the show. Because it's a platform and it's giving you, so you are like the sponsor is leveraging from millions and millions of platform to give them. It's like you again giving us 3 million for the show, we're going to give you 6 million worth of exposure. And we will put you on a prime time. Prime time means that there's 4 million people watching at that time. That's beautiful advertising for me. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move a bit fast. I don't want us to take too many questions. So we have so many slides. Please let me allow you. Okay. Yeah, so with licensing, it's your IP. You would have maybe got or in a year. Very spicy. I'm glad you guys have a sense of humor. Yeah, and you create that, and you create the show, and you take it to the broadcasters, and you're like, here's my piece of content. Can you buy it for a period? And I'm going to take it to a broadcast. So you literally can exploit that IP as much as you want. Yeah, so they pay you a fee for a period. And the value is based on what your piece of content can do for the viewers. The pros and cons to licensing. Pro is that your IP can exploit it. You can make money everywhere. Con is a lot of these broadcast entities are also very competitive, right? So if something has played on an SABC, multi-choice, it's not exclusive. We are paid TV. That's something that you really give people on free TV. Why is this value for us? We will only give you 10,000 rands for it. That's a number. And vice versa. But you could go to Netflix, and we all know how they do it. But they're very open to licenses. It just and they can give you a bit of money for that piece of content. You have to be really, if you're going to pursue the licensing model, my view is you have to be a market expert. Because if you just blindly do it and then the client is like, this is completely off straight, our viewers don't like this kind of things, the quality is bad, or these generally work for us. You pretty much screwed because where else would you take it? And also what speaks to SABC is very different to what speaks to ET. It's very different to what speaks to Masterclass. It's very different to what speaks to Netflix. So again, as much as you can exploit it, you have to understand that it might not be exploitable all around in one country. Maybe you can exploit it all the way out. But yeah, it's a catch-22. You keep your IP first, but where you take the content and how you expedite. Then the final one is pre-sales. Pre-sales basically means it's mostly for productions, big budget stuff, things that travel or have some international influence, international key players, actors, cast, crew, whatever the case may be, or even if it's not, it maybe has potential to go to other platforms. What you do is you've got a piece of IP or a piece of content, and you go to a broadcast and you sell the broadcast right, the distribution right, the TV in their territory. And what they do is because they say, okay, once you're done with this, have it on, you're going to schedule it on one Magic or Image. What then happens is you then take that commitment from them to go seek funding from international players or other equity spaces that can give you money. And then together with the people that are giving you money and the broadcaster, several times you have to put in their mandate and their objectives into that. Broadcaster wants to get involved in development and they want to have editorial say, even though the IP remains. Hope that makes sense. Again, a very, very, very beautiful model for me right now. They are quite interesting in these kind of things. You are able to say, I've got a certain amount of, co-producers or co-funds, and I just need the space. They will give you that. The catch-22 right now, and it's multi-choice because they're also quite big on sales or an agency. If they're now saying, go get 70% of your funding before we can commit as a distributor. You go to your Belgian friend or your German friend or your friend, wherever else, which dad, they will say, we can't give you that much unless you know that it's going to sit in the fridge. So it's an egg and a chicken, and that's what we negotiate. You find yourself being so frustrated in these rooms and saying, but it's impossible. They need a South African partner, they need a South African platform before they can give us all these euros. And then the South African platform is like, no, we can only but give you 20% to close funding or 30%, and then we need and that you've got to raise 80%. So with the DTI doing what it's doing, it's also I wanted to say no shade to the DTI, but do you shade to the DTI? There's a question. So, yes, SMEs don't need to be for paid customers. More audience that maybe aren't subscribed to pay TV. I don't know if I'm making sense. They have a bigger viewership, right? So not everybody has pay TV. And that's where the conflict comes in. Is yes, those that have the pay TV can access the free broadcaster, but those that don't have pay TV can access the free broadcaster. So if you have given them a series, played on SBC to 10 million people, and then after 2-3 years, you take it to multi-choice, they're like, what's the benefit for the customer who's paying 1,000 rand per month? Because this thing has already been shown for free. Does it answer? All right, and then new media. I'm going to just rush through this just because of time. Musicals, micro dramas, excited about those. It's been booming in Asia, in Europe, because of the in America now. It's like literally a multi-billion rand model. And now we come into Africa, and I'm so excited about what we're going to do with verticals. And the beautiful thing is you just need to get yourself to sit on panels, research, whatever. We are doing a panel as a GFF. And then YouTube, TikTok, and Roblox. OnlyFans, by the way, is actually, guys, hear me out. Let me cook. OnlyFans actually has channels where you can put shows on TV shows, and it's not erotica, get your mind off the gutter. I promise you, people are making so much. People are making so much money. YouTube, West Africans are kidding. Broadcasters, Netflix left because they were like, we can't compete with YouTube. Yet as South Africans, we're all knocking Mnet, at Netflix, and guys, we create. This room is full of amazing creators. We know we've got millions of users who want to consume content in their own languages, in their own spaces. We need to start getting onto new media. It is a very long journey. You're not going to be a millionaire overnight, but you will be a millionaire eventually. Is what I just want to say. All right. Great. So I think just move, because if you move, I move. Okay. So, are there any questions from that? I think it's quite clear, right? All right. Yes. I worked on it, by the way, one of the seasons. Yes, it's a format. It's actually a format. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So by the time I joined Boots Pro, it was 2016, 2017, and it was on so multiple seasons. I can't remember whether it was the producer or buying. At times, it's the casters who buy the format. For instance, another format, I can announce it because, put out the press thing, is we got
and that was the broadcaster.
So casters and idols and so those are the ones who really big production companies who can give these formats life, especially given that they are quite prestige, they go for big production companies. However, a Real Housewives, for instance, the producer is the one who had connections with the producers abroad, and they're the ones who negotiated that, came to MultiChoice and said, I now have the rights to this. I'd like to make a South African version of it. Does that answer? Yeah. Okay, how to apply for broadcast commissions?
One question.
Sure.
When it comes to AFPs,
Yes.
what would you say are best practices for that? Like, do you go to LinkedIn, look at the marketing director's email, cold email? What would a pitch deck look like for someone who's not in the industry?
I would say find an agent. If you don't have direct access to sponsors, there's a lot of sponsorship-based agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Find them and say, if you can find a home for this piece of content, I'll give you a commission.
Okay.
That's the easiest way.
Okay.
Otherwise, you do what you said, but I'm sure they get a lot of, yeah. All right, so I think I'll just run through this. So the platforms and the mandates, you must know, again, I'm going to repeat this, no piece of content is one size fits all. Like, if you look at we've been in development in Tabi and I for the past year, and like, if you look at the stuff we've been developing, it's crazy. We've got a folder for every broadcaster because we understand what we are doing. Zanzi Magic palette is very different to ETV. It's very different to Model Lab. It's very different to SABC. You cannot take, and they will see it. If you take a concept and then you just change the logo, you're like, this one, I'm sending it to E, and then you remove the E logo, and then you put, you can't do that. The mandates are different. SABC, it's about nation building. It's about education. It's about all those whole, who are we as a people, our identity, diversity, representation. So you can't take a piece of content where you want to educate and you're going to take it to Zanzi Magic and you're like, they've been showing bums and tits. Now they must educate. It's pay TV. That's not their mandate. No, I'm being honest, because producers, when I was on the other end, producers would literally attack us. You guys are giving irresponsible broadcasting. And you're like, well, the people paying for the package really enjoy what they see. So you guys have to be audience-centric and also understand that there's different mandates, right? So SABC, that is their mandate. They do a lot of daytime. They do a lot of kids stuff. They do a lot of actuality. They don't, it's very difficult to get commissions through them, and I'll talk about that just in my next few slides, but that's their mandate. So if there is a messaging that you want to put across and you're very much about the moral premise and you're very much about nation building and that sort of thing, I feel that every story should have those elements, and there's good ways to do it in an entertaining way. That's just my stance. But if you want to be, direct about the, you know, the message you want to put across, that's more likely where you go. ETV, EVOD, they are commercial. So a lot of how they set up is it's based on sponsors, brands, and airtime that they sell. So for them, it's really about the X factor. It's about how do we keep this entertaining? How do we compete with a pay TV and a TV? So it's that middle ground, but they like the edgy stuff and different things. So Innovate ETV is definitely the platform. Premium, this is where we were talking about the English market. Very premium, very English. They're not commissioning much originals at this moment. They do guys take licenses in, and most likely it's international stuff. Unless it is a format. You know, there will be a MasterChef, Survivor, you know, so maybe you can go to London and go to Universal or BBC and talk to our friends that side and come back with something that might be able to entertain you. Zanzi Magic, they do mass market Black African content. They're very much about how do we innovate, how do we elevate what is already on free to air. And they don't like following trends, they like fitting them. So for them, again, it's also important to see what they put out. KakeNet, it's Afrikaans content. Like I said, it's broken down in white and colored Afrikaans content, and they do across the board scripted AFPs, scripted actuality, and. Showmax, it's a streaming platform, and they have now integrated telenovelas, epic dramas, you know, reality shows. So Showmax is really a replication of linear, to be quite honest, but it's just more much more curated for individual viewing. Because on linear TV, there's a lot of regulation, which we'll talk about later. Then we've got international platforms that are currently in our country. Netflix is very global, is bought with a local presence. The interesting thing about their mandate right now is we used to think they want to travel with the content, which they do and which they have the platform for, but they are mandated to be hyper-local. So when you bring a concept to them, yes, it needs to be elevated. They look at production value, they look at commercial things. But will this speak to the audience right now? And they're very much mass skewed right now. Because for them is, if we don't perform in the country we are in, no matter how many countries this blood and water goes to, if it's not number one in South Africa, we failed. So they've now changed their, you know, mandate. So basically Showmax and Netflix are the same thing with more money. I mean, I'm assuming Alison will tell us whether it's true or not. And like I said, with them, if you've got a pre-sale or a licensing, easier to get in. If not, I have to just be honest, you would have to go to, I don't want to mention, but you have to go to an agency to get to Netflix. They are they're very particular, hey. They only deal with who they deal with. They are interested in new voices, but it needs to come through some sort of distribution agent they can trust. So it's not an easy one to just walk into. Life hack to get into Netflix, I would say, is kill it on MultiChoice, kill it on ETV, kill it on SABC, and let them be the one who come to you. View and emerging platforms. There's quite a few platforms that are now coming in. View is really interesting because they use a hybrid sort of like space. They use AVOD and ASVOD. So who can tell me what's the difference between ASVOD and AVOD? There's no wrong answer, sure.
So AVOD is ad funded, so most of the money is going to come from whoever the platform gets to advertise. So it's like watching TV. You watch it for free, but you get ads in between, whereas SVOD is like DSTV, you pay a subscription every month, and like Netflix or Prime Video or whatever, AVOD is like Afroland TV.
100% accurate. AVOD, there's an advertiser that they've already done. They'll give the piece of content for a very small fee or for free to the viewer. The catch is they have to watch advertisement as they're watching it. Is you subscribe to a Netflix or a Showmax or a View. You pay, you don't watch without advertisement. So those are the only differences. View is quite interesting because they have different models. And one moment they're doing telenovelas and dramas and licensing and like, yeah, I think with you just need to walk up to them and say, what are you looking for now? Because they're not really particular about who you are. They just want good content. All right, RFPs, Tamilin's favorite word. Oh, I had to Google. I'm like, what's an RFP? I was like, oh, it's a brief. RFPs, it's briefs. It's solicited briefs. It's a call. It's broadcasters telling you exactly what they want. I took a few out. This was one I'd received last year from ETV. There was a specific piece of content that they wanted. They have a portal, but I don't know if they use it much, but when they do close briefs, they will give you a subject matter or subject line to put in your email. They'll give you an email to email it to, and then they will give you detail of what they're looking for exactly and how you should break down your pitch deck. If you don't have the right subject matter, your email just or your application goes to a black hole. They will not entertain it. So with E, it's really good to build relationships with them in order for you on that list of people they send these briefs to. They are very visible at film festivals, so I think it's also best to just go to their stands. Maybe they have stands and just be like, hey, this is who I am. You've got show reels, or this is what I've done. Please, can you put it on your database so that I can get briefs? This I took from MultiChoice this morning. They currently have 4 open briefs, but it's for East Africa. So if there's any East African brothers and sisters, call me, let's work something out together, you and I. Nice, they have telenovela series, and they have these open briefs up until 6 March. When you click on it, again, it tells you exactly what they're looking for, and then it tells you how to format it. A lot of the briefs will tell you how to format. Don't go and do your own thing. Unsolicited briefs are very much similar. So if you can actually go on the portals and just take a what they're looking for, you would have the format of the brief should also look like. The most important thing when it comes to, you can go to the next slide, the most important thing when it comes to submitting, whether it's solicited or unsolicited, is let your deck be visual. These people sit with hundreds of applications in every down. It's too much reading for them if they just see words and writing, and especially if they don't read. If your deck can tell them the concept, and it tells them the tone, and it tells them the look, feel, and the genre, without them even having to read the logline, you've won. Because then they're like, this looks good. This person is taking time to make this presentable. I can trust them 6 million to give them a commission or to give them a contract. So make your decks as visual as possible. Get comparables, get beautiful images, check your spelling. More often than not, a lot of the broadcasters literally just read the first 2 pages and then they're done. With MultiChoice, I know that they're very much interested in a fully developed first episode, not a script, a treatment. So what they'll do is they'll read the logline, the what if premise, controlling idea, world of story, they'll look at the images and they'll go to ep 1. And then once they're done with episode 1, they'll be like, okay, this is what the story is about. And they'll call you in for pitch, and in pitch you will give the rest of the overview. They just want very detailed. It's really development. So just little detailed overviews of the series overview. To Lani and I these out. Yeah, it's giving us sleepless nights. Showmax, similar to that. Netflix, they do 2 pages. They don't want you to bombard them too much. So for them is logline, genre, comparables, and a synopsis. That's it. So, and they just want it in 2 pages. And you need to figure out a way to still put in visuals or make it visual in those 2 pages. With ETV is they would do the 1-page outline again, logline, your controlling ideas, world of story, characters. They would want maybe like the first 3 episodes, a little bit of the overview, and then the last episode. So you see how every broadcaster works differently. With SABC, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to lie.
Neither do I. But I do have, what we'll do after 2 o'clock, what we do have is that I do have a deck that we worked on a show It's still currently running called Amalanga Wafanya. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's on SABC 1, 6:30, so I write on that show. But we were part of the development team. But the pitch deck was 4 pages.
Oh,
It was 4 pages. So initially they sent it to us and then we read it. And obviously then we come in and then we develop the idea. However, it was very thin. I was very worried because I walked in the room blank. It does look like a semblance of a story, but we were literally starting from scratch. So I don't know if it's because SABC's changed. I don't want to speak as though they don't know what they're doing, but I know the concept of SABC. At the heart of it, they always say who's holding the remote control. So when you're thinking of the pitch, you have to think who's holding the remote control. So in South Africa, you find that Ugu and Mama holding the remote control at home, right? Because of the structure of the household. And that's how they think. So in terms of doing their pitches, think like that. You're not pitching to the daughter or whoever, you're pitching to the grandmother because she controls the remote. That's how generations still exist. That's why Mubango existed for as long as it did. So even with Amalanga, which I do have that pitch here, and hopefully we will not take videos, you will see how thin it is as compared to Mzansi, compared to NFVF, compared to all these other kind of entities to see what they want. Because pitching for a client, which I will do later in the day, is really crucial that you tailor make it for what they're looking for. Don't complicate it, literally speak to every sense of what they want.
thanks, Ntaz. Okay, yeah, and I think in terms of decks, again, Tabi will talk to that. The most fullest or the thickest one is the multi-choice one. They really want you, and the pitch process could take 7 pitches before you get a yes. Because then you put it on the portal, they go through it, a coordinator pulls it out, they call you in for paired for the CE team. The CE team gives you notes. It's usually 2 rounds of notes or 2 pitches. And until they're comfortable to take it to their senior manager, the senior manager goes through it, usually 2 pitches if it needs. And then they take it to the HOD. The HOD will sit and listen to your pitch and see, is this aligned with my strategy? If it is, then
the linear platform with Showmax, the platform being safe, and then the platform being safe.
so by the time you get a yes, that story has changed drastically. That collage we showed you, in terms of Elephant sat in most of the pictures up front and I was on the other. They were created versus when they signed the contract and they started developing was very different versus what went on air. So you can't be precious about your concept because you will chop and change it. Yeah, the whole time. So pitching is not for the faint-hearted. I saw a hand. Yes.
So with the tips and the equipment, do you have to pilot or it's
If you want, it's really up to you. And if you're gonna do it, it better be good. That's to your capabilities, right? In the past, my last 3 years, a lot of writers who were not producers started shooting pilots and attaching them to their decks. And now they are fully fledged producers. Because we were like, this person, they know what they're doing. We knew they could write, but the moment we saw them, put that into execution and actually, if you got a comedy and you're like, wow, this is actually really brilliant. It worked really well for them. There are people who submitted pilots and the concept was good, but the quality was so bad that it's like, we can't trust this person, not even with a 500K. So just be very careful with that. Just one last question. I need to sit down because Alison has a lot to say. Okay, be good. What broadcast distribution entails in practice? This is for if you've got a pre-sale or a license or a piece of content that you are given to them for a period. It's different. There's a first window, which is for a period. Let me say, for instance, it's a movie. Let's say a movie that you give to them. It's maybe come out of a cinema and you're giving it to multi-choice. For the first window, I'm going to put it on box office, monetize that, and there will be a split between the producer and the network. It's more favoring the producer. Once that period is done, then they're going to put it on their linear platforms. Once that period is done, maybe they'll put it on their OTT space. Once that period is done, it's done. So it's quite do reruns, depending on the contract and the terms that you have worked on. But when it comes to commissioning, you can't negotiate any rights. You can't negotiate any, like you can't ask for money for reruns. You can't, like, you've gotten your lump sum and that's that. They also have the right to, if they want to do a second season and they feel that you are not the person they want to do it with, they can give it to someone else. They own it. They give you your money. It's theirs. They can do whatever they want. But that only happens if you really messed up, like really, really, really messed up. And even if you really, really, really messed up, they will have engagements. If you don't humble yourself and you acknowledge, I messed up here, I did this, then they will do that. But if you are humble and you're like, I'm sorry, I messed up, I mismanaged this and this and this, they'll be like, okay, if it really rated, we'll give you a second season, but on a basis that you get supervision or, whatever the case may be. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Licensing requirements and regulatory bodies. Okay, so we've got ICASA, and they set the local content quotas and licenses for broadcasters. So they tell the broadcasters that you can only commission X amount of content. If you're going to commission super hyper local projects for X amount, you need to have licensed X amount of, I hope I'm making sense. They tell the broadcasters how much licensing needs to take place. NFVF, they're a public funding body for a lot of development and production cycles. I hope you guys have been applying, especially for PSP and those type of cycles that have been coming out. GFC also helps a lot of seed funding, even for TV stuff. Ntabeleng and I have worked together for maybe close to 7 to 10 years now, where she would bring her 20 filmmakers. Sometimes they would get a movie or two, but what they would do is, even if we've commissioned someone for a Mzansi Magic movie or a series, and they say GFC is willing to give us a bit of money for post, we would agree to it. So that's also just an avenue to go to. Even if you've got the commission, do reach out to them and see if they're able to give you a bit of a gap where you do need a gap. And then BCCSA handles content classification and complaints. This is very important. You will see that you would agree on a piece of content or on a creative in the writer's room. Your CE might even approve it. By the time you shoot it and you take the final project for submission, then there's somebody from PGA, it's called Program Acceptance something. Basically, they work with BCCSA. They'll say, no, we're rejecting this file. It's too adult themed. The first 2 minutes, they're kissing, and this is a daytime show. And you're going to have to re-edit it, because if a viewer complains, they need to go to court. And if there's a fine, that broadcaster needs to pay a lot of money to clear that fine. So regulatory stuff is very, very important. Don't just do what you want to do, because it's going to cost you money to fix. Just be mindful when you get multiple people giving you the money, and know that they all have distinct mandates. Sorry, your hand was up?
Yes, I wanted to ask, because that's in the BCCSA part, where does the film FPV come in, and how do we engage?
Yes, that's mostly for public screenings.
Okay.
So if Ntabi and I have made a movie and we're going to show it at Ster-Kinnico or at a festival in Soweto or whatever, you go through the PFP because they need to rate it. But if it goes to a broadcaster, they have their own PGA, Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So that's more for independent screenings and stuff like that in festivals. Sure.
Can I disturb you? Sorry to disturb the session. We are getting a request from Ster-Kinnico to move to a bigger venue. So we'd like 20 minutes just break. Just a leg stretch because of getting a bigger site.
Can I finish my 4 slides? Yes, it's just 4 slides.
Okay, after the 4 slides, you need 20 minutes. And then we go to the other side. Thank you.
All right, and then practically speaking, now how do I approach a commissioning space? You need to know that, for instance, ETV, they have 2 windows in a year. They're going to open up in March, and then they open up, they close, and then they open up again in August. Anything in between, they're not going to entertain. So they have the windows. Multi-choice, they have unsolicited portal, but they do put out briefs, but they're very open. Netflix, they also have their windows. Usually they will open in the beginning of the year and then close, and then if they need stuff, they will open up again. SABC, you need to sit on the portal and look at their briefs and see when they open up. So you need to understand that there's different openings, and the only way you will get to know it is if you engage them again at industry events, festivals, and that type of thing. You have to stay abreast with them by constantly asking, when are you opening? Are you looking for anything? And then if they say March, then around March, you can reach out and say, hey, I want to submit something to you guys. And then whilst you do that, also watch their platform so you're not giving them something that's already TX'd. I've spoken about solicited and unsolicited briefs. I've spoken about the pitches, established practitioners. Yeah, so what I want to say, for established practitioners who are in the room, you can't say, oh, what a broadcaster is looking for. I've sat in that building for 10 years knowing that today we are looking for dinosaurs. And in 2 weeks' time, we're like, no, fish. Things all the time. So you have to constantly hone in on relationships. You have to constantly sit. If there's a film festival happening, like JFF next week, all of those podcasts, all of the platforms, even the streamers have panels. That's where they tell you what their strategy is. That's where they tell you that you have to go and sit and listen and hear what they're saying. Otherwise, you'll be wasting your time giving them stuff that you're not looking for. And then I want to talk to sort of like emerging filmmakers or people who are not necessarily emerging, but they haven't really been able to go into relationships with broadcasters. The best thing that's going to help you is when you build your personal brand. The more noise you make about yourself and the work that you're doing, the more they take you seriously. Apply for Story Labs. I'm a product of Story Labs. I did Story Labs whilst I was broadcasting because I knew that I wanted to produce one day, and I was like, I need to have a credible voice by the time I go and produce. So even though I can be a boss with air-conditioned offices, I'm going to do Story Labs. I'm going to do programs because when I grow my network and my knowledge, people will know that I know what I'm talking about. So do that. Attend festivals. Try get mentors. When you do pitch, try get people to pitch with you, right? Again, I've had so much experience. I've been pitching for the past year, but I'm brand new in this pitching space, right? I'm a qualified writer. I did my honors at After Writing. I did television and film writing. I know that I'm a brilliant writer. I know that I'm great at story. But till today, every pitch I attend, I have locked a writer on. I pitch with a writer. Because I know that by the moment I walk with Tavi and Alison and a writer into that room, they don't now have to be like, what is that doing? But they're like, Alison has worked in these Netflix shows. Tavi is just directing this for us, and this writer is just writing this show for us. These people are credible. I hope I'm opening your eyes. Like, don't want to be the only one in the room because it's gonna take a while. There's a lot of writers even in the room who are writing for these platforms right now. Hone in on relationships with them and say, hey, do you want to work on this content with me? I can maybe work out splits with you, or I can make you a head writer if they approve. Like, figure out how to negotiate with them, right? It's when you try enter a space, I've noticed your hand. When you try enter a space, don't try get to make money immediately. Get the right people who know what they're doing, even if it means you're not going to make money, so that your first project is really good, and then you can start making money.
Hi, Flavia.
Hey.
Everyone. So, with regards to getting into some of these lists, my personal experience as somebody who is over 40 is that some of them have an
age, yeah.
And so it's very unfair in the industry, especially for associates who maybe started out from one, and so I started out in hair and makeup,
Yeah.
and for years, and attending all these pre-production meetings and stuff like that. One has really, from experience, practical support from other
Yeah.
So how do you, if you want to now migrate to the spaces, but now the age factor, so how I looked, maybe I'm not in the right place.
Yeah.
But what steps out there are available to
I think it's looking in the right spaces because I absolutely agree with you. Like, because I'm still doing labs now, and I'm still like, and I will for every lab I go into, I've probably gotten 20 rejections, or I'm eligible for 20 other. That's just to give you a sense that you have to just keep pushing. Last year there was this phenomenal lab. It was called by Free Room Films, and I did it. It was for producing 101. Brilliant. I rave about it in time all the time. I still need to send you the
You
slides.
must send me the stuff.
And it were people from different age groups, people from different levels of experiences, and it was the most brilliant thing that inducted me into producing. It was free of charge. They actually even paid me to attend. I found that on Swift because I'm part of that network. So it's also good to be part of industry bodies and networks and like that, stuff like that, because that's where you'll find a lot of these things. Swift is really a good organization for women. If you're not on Swift, get on Swift because they really put you on. I hope that answers. All right. So when a platform looks at your content, even if your deck is beautiful and the story is powerful, they're just thinking, are we going to make money? Will this thing rate? Will it give us subscribers? Is it different from anything that we've had? Is it different from what our competitors are doing? If there's no yes, they're not going to entertain it any further. So you have to also be a market expert. What it means is you cannot be giving something to a multi-choice or submitting to a multi-choice and you don't know what's happening on ETV, you don't know what's happening on Netflix, you don't know what's happening on SA. Because whether we like it or not, all these platforms, whether it's linear or streaming, they are all providing content to the same audience. And it's the same audience consuming the content. So you have to give them things that are going to make them money, that's going to retain their audiences, and that's going to give them ROI. And then what do they look for in risk? Again, what I just spoke about is, are you capable and reliable? If they don't know you, they won't be able to answer it. If your pitch deck has spelling mistakes like my deck here, if this was going to a broadcaster, they wouldn't have commissioned me. I promise you that. It doesn't matter who I am. If your log line doesn't make sense, if there's no structure, this is why at times you need to get really very talented writers to help you with that gig. And sometimes those very talented writers might not be the best pitchers, and maybe you're a better pitcher. That's okay, but they would have built whatever they needed to build. Maybe they can help you with Q&A and that sort of thing. Sometimes you might need to even get a director like Amenga and say, listen, I'm going to take this piece of content to whoever, can you please help me build the deck, and then hopefully you can direct should it get commissioned. Just be very creative around how you work around it, but don't work in silos and do peer reviews as well. And then they also look at budget credibility, like can you actually deliver in budget and in schedule, right? I have been submitting for telenovelas. I'm very, very ambitious. And they've all humbled me because they're like, you've not even made us a measly bioscope. How can we trust you with 70 million? And I'm like, no, I understand. But I knew that, right? So I gave them a lot of bioscopes up front. And I was like, I understand, then look at my bioscope and give me a bioscope. If there's a nice one that you like, so that I can get to my telenovela at some point. When I approach a Netflix, even with all of my experience, I do it with very credible co-producers because I don't have to over-explain. When I approach an ETV, I look at people that work with them and I attach them to the project. I'm not trying to arrive alone. Does that make sense? So we can go to the next slide. Common reasons application file failed despite strong story. Bad packaging, we spoke about that. Wrong platform, it's completely out of track. You are giving something that's vampires to Mzansi Magic. We all love Twilight, but they'll be like, this is not culturally relevant. It's not culturally, for them it's about cultural relevance. What Ntabi was talking about with SABC is very similar with them. It's like, who are the people paying this account? Will they like this? It wouldn't work because it's not culturally relevant. You know what I mean? How do you explain to Kuku what a vampire is? That's literally, that's what, but if you say Tokolo, then they're like, oh, now we're talking, here's a horror, you know, like now we're talking. So you could take the Twilight format and adjust it to local nuances. So it's just to change your mindset on how different can be different, but still very grounded on reality. Sure. Is that okay? Cool. Yeah, and then like I said, production infrastructure is always great. Appearances, optics. Who are you attaching on that project? You know. Again, even like because I see there are people here who are maybe of different ethnicities and you maybe focus on mass market. If you have an all-white crew and you or an all-white team and you are presenting something really strong and really good and something that is commercially viable, they might say no because they'll be like, you don't understand our audience, right? But if you bring in a Tulani or which other writers here have been painting Tulani? There's other writers here. I just can't remember. Sihle, if you, I'm such a fan of her. You bring in a Sihle, and you're like, please can you maybe attach yourself to this project so that we can nuance it and you can also respect the culture accordingly. They're more likely to open up to you. Similar to me, if I'm going to pitch a KZN story, they know I know nothing about Zoom, you know. So I'm gonna have to go work with. I mean, the project I'm working with Tulani is a very Xhosa-based story, and he understands the nuances more than I could ever, you know. So I hope that makes you understand that like credibility is also not just how many years of experience you have, but it's also the lived experience in the world that you pitch. And then unsecured rights, adaptations, true stories, IP issues, they stop the conversation immediately if you don't have rights. And then, yeah, wrong platform, wrong format, and poor timing. I want to just go to poor timing. I think we're almost done with me. This is my last slide. Yeah, that's what I'm going to end on. Poor timing. Guys, now I'm a child of God. Like I'm not apologetic about it, and I'm a very spiritual person. I always believe that if God has set something for you, it will come to pass. It might not be in your time, but it will come to pass. Poor timing doesn't mean delay does not mean denial, right? So you could reject a really brilliant concept, but you don't get stuck there. You give them something until they accept you. And once they've accepted you and you've produced brilliant stuff for them, then they'll be like, Kana Flavia 3 years ago gave us that thing. And she just did a brilliant thing here. Let's give her that commission. A lot of this, the wife was pitched 4 or 5 years before it was even made by different producers who got the IP at different times. By the time we eventually commissioned it, because the timing was right. Can you imagine when the other guys who got the IP again quit and those who gotten the book IP it didn't go well for them? It wouldn't be the phenomenon it is. Gomorrah, when we started working on it, its name was Jima, I think at some point. It was a very different creative. It was, you know, but they kept on pushing. There's so many things that we put on ice. There's an ice folder. So it's rejected on the portal, but it's put on ice to say, when the time is right, we will pursue this. But what I want to leave you with is when you get a rejection, it just means you keep giving them more and more and more and more. And you keep creating your quality. Because then they'll be like, this person is so serious. Every month they give us proposals. We just have to find the right one that works for now. So do not give up. And that's, I'll come back again after lunch. Yeah. Sure.
Thanks so much for the presentation.
Sorry, there's just one question. Can we just give a...
Okay, thank you. My name is Takai Makalia. So I just wanted to speak about timing and also how to have a good
mindset. Yes.
So I've pitched a lot in Tonga to the point that I pitched to the much choice Sipho, who is talking, speaking person. And he said to me, unfortunately, Democrats fix and the numbers are not delivering. So I just want to find out from your point of view, how do you, as you said, you know that the Zulus could be people and then you have holding the industry strong piece of the numbers and. So I just want to find out, is it advisable for some of us who want to tell stories in different languages to pursue that or just to divert?
You could definitely, okay, so you could definitely pursue minority languages on an SABC because that is their mandate. You can definitely pursue it on the commercial platforms as well, but maybe that's not the predominant language. Do you know what I mean? So what it means, I don't know, I don't think this works. What it means is how you build your world is you package it in the familiar that they want because they need to get the subscribers, right? But then you can still have your representation in and where you need to have your representation. Telenovelas does it a lot. Drama series does it a lot as well, actually. So it's still very possible.
Just to give you so 2 or 3 years ago, I worked on a show so I was creative producing Giyani. SABC2 9:30. So at that time, Mobango was at some point, and they needed a language that they could replace it. So because which I also worked on, had a marginalized market, but was mass in terms of storytelling. Because they had the vendor world, but they also had the Zulu world. So what they did is that they did the Shona world and then they did the Zulu world to give them that mass. Right, and it sits on SABC2. So it's important for who you're pitching to, right? So then on SABC2, we were at 9:30, primed to replace Mobango. But the story kind of ran out of steam because we were doing a story about rhino poaching, blah, 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 and there was only so far you could take it. But look at those sort of platforms. SABC2 is always looking and searching for those languages. So I'm trying to write, Scheme Sam exists.
Scheme Sam is the biggest
It's
show.
the biggest show. It's literally, it's gargantuan. Everybody, we're actually trying to develop a show to go up against Scheme Sam. Every bratatazel, because it is such a big thing to overcome and it's in speed. So know your client. What stories are you trying to tell? Which platform you're going to tell it? And then who's your audience? And then buffer it, make it fatty, and then your language can still exist. There is a platform for everything. SABC2.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. Nah? And Kiani did very well, by the way. Nah?
Okay, so let's change venues. Thank you, guys. So you put this on.
Okay.
Sorry, Flavia. I just was giving an example. Sorry.
How are you?
Oh my God.
Now we're gonna job balances.
Hi, Shen.
Now, and then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna dance. So
You can wake them up here.
yes, it makes me feel like, oh my God, yes,
I'm gonna scare them more than anything.
I think scare them. Actually, that's not a very idealistic way of looking at things. Like the heads in the clouds. So it's crazy.